It was December of 2010 and my life was about to change forever. I was just a couple months away from graduating from college. In just about 2 weeks, I was going to be getting married. But more pressing than either of those things was that my grandma was dying of cancer. And when things like that happen in your family, everyone gathers together and you try to pass the time. I remember laying on the floor in my parents' living room and the movie Despicable Me was on. I found out very quickly that it was about a supervillain who adopted 3 girls so that they could be a part of his plan to steal the moon. As you could tell, it's a very serious movie. The oldest girl immediately knows that this guy is up to no good and tells him straight up at the beginning, "You will never be our dad." And at that point, that doesn't really hurt his feelings or anything because he's not really interested in being their dad. He just wants to use them to get what he wants. But as the movie goes on, they grow closer together and everybody starts to actually care for each other until eventually they become a family. As the movie gets closer to the ending, Gru goes off to steal the moon and just blows off the girls' ballet recital. But then he has a change of heart and goes to show up, but he is late and it's already over. But on the seat that was reserved for him, he finds a note that says Margot, Edith, and Agnes's dad. And as soon as I see this sign, I start to cry. Luckily, my back is to everybody, so nobody has to know, but I am just starting to tear up. And for the rest of the movie, which is goofy and the action climax, I am sitting there with tears streaming down my face. Once the movie's over, I try not to think about it too much. I chalk it up to being emotional with my grandma getting ready to pass away and just try to move on. My grandma would pass away just a couple weeks later. Fast forward a couple months and I'm now married and living in my first apartment with my wife. We're sitting down to watch a movie and we've chosen to watch a documentary called Young at Heart, which is about a group of senior citizens who sing in a choir together covers of popular songs. And the movie goes along following these different people as they're getting ready for a big concert. And it focuses in on these 2 guys who are going to sing a duet of the Coldplay song, Fix You. And so everything's going great until eventually one of these guys dies. And the guy who is still alive decides to pay tribute to his friend by singing the song anyway at the concert solo. And when he sings the line, "When you lose something you can't replace," I am broken like I had never been broken before. Like I thought I had been crying at Despicable Me, but it was nothing compared to this. And my poor wife, who at this point had been married to me for maybe 4 months, does not know what to do. To be fair, I wouldn't know what to do if I find myself looking like that. It all just comes flooding out. I'm questioning everything about myself. Will I be a good dad? Am I a good son? Am I a good grandson? I miss my grandma. I miss my other grandparents too. Should you have married me? It is easily in the top 3 of times I have cried since I was 5 years old. And from that day on, I have been a movie crier. And I'm proud to admit it. It's not something I try to hide, but it does make me wonder from time to time.
Why do you cry?
Specifically, at movies. Now, I wondered if there was some kind of scientific reason why people cry at movies, and I tried to do some research on it, and every article that I read had a different hypothesis and a different finding about different chemicals that are released in the brain when we see different things in movies. And so the real answer to that is people aren't really sure why we cry when we watch movies. Now, I have a theory of my own, though not very scientific, about why we cry at the movies. You see, we all know what it feels like to feel different emotions. And when we watch movies, we're reminded of those feelings and reminded of what it felt like to go through the things that caused those emotions in us. We know that the person on the screen isn't real, but we do know that the feelings that they're feeling are real. And we know that because we've experienced them, or we're experiencing them right now. Or maybe somebody that we know has gone through something that the person in the movie is going through. So it all boils down to, I think we cry at the same things in movies that we cry at in real life. Now, I don't want to generalize to anybody else, so I'll speak solely for me at this point when I say I cry, during a breakup. And so when I watch a movie and I see somebody in a breakup, I might cry because I remember those feelings. I think specifically about, the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is all about going through a breakup and wishing you could forget everything that had happened in it so that all of the pain will go away. We know what those feelings are like. I know what those feelings are like, and they can bring about those big emotions and those big responses. And on the flip side of that, we also can cry when people find love, because we know what it means to find that kind of companionship, or to find a relationship that feels like it completes you, or that relationship that is the most important thing in the world to you. I think about the movie Rocky for this one. Rocky is all about this guy who has a dream of going the distance with the champ. He doesn't even care if he wins, but once he does that thing that he dreams about, the only thing he can think of is the girl that he's met and fallen in love with over the course of the movie.
Here it's chaos. Rocky, you went the distance. You went the 15 rounds. How do you feel? All right, what are you thinking about when that buzzer sounds for that line? What do you think about when the 15th round when you're coming out? Adrian! 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 Adrian!
Rocky!
Hey, where's your hat?
I love you!
I love you.
And if you catch me on the right day, it's going to bring a tear to my eye. Now, of course, the standard reason why people might cry at a movie is when, somebody dies. And, this can be done in a way that feels, earned, or kind of feels cheap and is a surprise, because, it's not hard to get an emotion out of people. People will complain about movies being manipulative. And the truth is, all movies are manipulative. They're not real. They want you to feel feelings that aren't actually happening. That's their goal. But you can do it in a way where it is cheap and it doesn't feel like it's been earned. The perfect example of that for me personally is the movie Pay It Forward. Pay It Forward will always have a weird spot in my family's life. It is the first time that I ever saw my dad cry. This movie is about how this kid wants to change the world with the idea of, instead of paying somebody back, everybody just, does good deeds to another person. And then that goes on and on and on until everybody in the world is doing good things. And you know what happens at the end of this feel-good movie? I'll tell you what. They kill the kid. He gets straight stabbed because he's trying to help a kid that's getting bullied. And it's out of nowhere that this happens. And it rocked my family to the core. I remember specifically having to sit down and do piano practice after watching this movie and thinking, what is the point, But there are some good examples too of, a death happening in a movie and there being emotion in it and you seeing people's reaction to what has happened. I think about the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire when Cedric Diggory shows up and his dad sees that he's dead, and you get that heart-wrenching yell from him.
That's my son! That's my boy! My boy!
Another thing that gets me emotional is when I'm watching a movie and I see somebody being supported in their dreams and supported in the things that they find are important to them. One example that comes to mind right away for me is a movie that I don't know if a lot of people actually saw called Eddie the Eagle, which is about the true story of a guy who wanted to become an Olympian but was not good at sports. And throughout his early life, nobody believed that he was going to be able to do it. But his mom always believed in him and always encouraged him to keep trying.
Where do you think you're going, young man?
The Olympics.
You better take this. Put your medals in.
Thanks, Mum.
And it continues on that when eventually he's actually going to the Olympics, that she encourages him in the same way.
And where do you think you're going?
The Olympics.
I thought you might need this.
And knowing and seeing that inspires me to want to be that kind of a parent and friend to the people in my life, and thinking about the people who have been there for me in that way. When I realize that I'm cared for like that, it brings up those kind of feelings, and it can make me, again, get a little teary-eyed. But sometimes in movies, we don't have somebody who's been supportive the entire time. Again, we jump back to the Rocky franchise. In the movie Rocky 2, Adrian, the love of Rocky's life, does not want him to fight anymore. Now, Adrian has been in a coma since the birth of their son. She finally wakes up and Rocky's able to talk with her. And she's there with him and he's telling her, hey, if you don't want me to fight, I won't fight, because he loves her and he cares about her and he wants what's best for her. But she looks at him and she tells him,
There's one thing I want you to do for me.
What?
Come here.
What?
Win. Win.
and when she tells him to win, you can see him come alive again. And to know that we have that kind of power in people's lives to encourage them and let them be the best them that they can be, and that people choose to do that for me also, is just awesome. In life, we sometimes don't realize like how valuable we are as people. And so seeing somebody realize that they have value and realize that they aren't, worthless, and that they can contribute always gets me emotional. And my favorite example of this is from the movie Wreck-It Ralph, where Ralph is the bad guy of the video game and he thinks that's all he's ever going to be. But eventually he meets a person named Vanellope who helps him realize that he can be cared for because of who he is. And so every time at the end of the movie when he gives his little speech,
turns out I don't need a medal to tell me I'm a good guy. Because if that little kid likes me, how bad can I be?
I feel it right here in my throat every time. Another thing that can get me emotional is when I'm watching a movie and there's a character who feels abandoned and doesn't have, people around them to support them, and then they find that family. And Matilda just jumps to mind for me on this one, with Matilda and Miss Honey becoming this family. These two people who felt alone and felt unloved, and finding each other.
I wanted to stay with Miss Honey. Miss Honey doesn't want you. Why would she want some snotty, disobedient kid?
Because she's a spectacularly wonderful child and I love her.
The idea of people finding redemption is another thing that gets me really emotional. I watch How the Grinch Stole Christmas every year. I'm talking the animated one. I know there's a lot of love for Jim Carrey out there, but that movie's definitely not making me cry, at least not for good reasons. And when the Grinch ends up saving Christmas after he's tried to destroy it and comes back to town and is welcomed in and realizes he doesn't have to be alone, realizes, what Christmas is all about, again, that makes me feel good. Or sometimes in stories, people might hope that they could be a better version of themselves and think that they could never reach that potential because of who they were raised to be or trained to be. And I think about the Iron Giant at the end.
You are who you choose to be.
And of course, this isn't an exhaustive list of reasons you can cry when watching movies. There's a lot of different reasons, and different things can hit people in different ways. We do need to clear up one more thing when it comes to saying, I cried when watching a movie. I use crying as a kind of catch-all phrase. It can mean a lot of different things. In fact, crying at movies is really a scale. Lump in your throat, misty-eyed, single tear, full stream, ugly cry, and Niagara Falls. Now, I've heard it said in life that as you get older, you become more soft or a bigger softy, and that's why people cry more the older they get. But I don't know if it's really because you're getting soft. I think it's more so you've experienced more of what life can throw at you. You have a better idea of all the emotions that there are. You have the full palette of colors when it comes to those emotional experiences that you can draw on and remember when watching movies or listening to songs or reading books or whatever it is that you like to do. So whereas when I was a kid, if I would have watched the movie Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, at the end of it, I probably wouldn't have been emotional at all. But now, where I am in life, I watch it and I hear Peter Quill say,
I had a pretty cool dad.
And I realize, hey, I have a pretty cool dad too. And he's not going to be around forever. And I should probably go and text him and tell him how much I love him. Or how before you have a kid in your life, maybe not even your own, but your friends or a nephew or a niece, you can watch Monsters, Inc. and hey, it's just a fun adventure about some monsters trying to get a little baby home. But once that kid shows up and you watch the end and you see Sully trying to put that kid back in that bed and then he has to leave.
Goodbye, Boo.
Kitty.
Kitty has to go.
It's kind of like dropping an emotional atomic bomb on you. Some people might say that crying at movies is silly, or that it's showing weakness, or that it's dumb. And to those people, I say, for me personally, I think that if we can learn to feel the emotions of these people on the screen, these fake people, then maybe, just maybe, I can learn to be better at feeling the emotions of the real people that are in life around me and help me understand where they're coming from more. And through learning how to have more empathy, this feeling other people's feelings, I might just be able to make the world a better place.
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I left off a couple of my big cry movies. I figure I'd probably talk about them at some other time. I am curious to know though, what movies make you cry? And also, is there like a event or a genre that makes you cry more than anything? Like personally, I am a big crier when it comes to grumpy guys having their hearts melted by little kids. If you did enjoy watching the video, please make sure to like and subscribe down below, and a share. Whew, that would be something else. With all that being said, I'll see you next Saturday with another video.